Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Bonsoir, mes amis. Welcome to Game Over Montreal. I am Andrew Berkshire, and I'm here with Conor Tomalty, and the Montreal Canadiens have just lost their first playoff series since 2021, the first playoff series of this new rebuild, and it's easy to be down about it, and we're going to talk about feelings and all that about this series in this first segment. We're going to get all that out of the way, but I want to make sure everybody knows is we're going to get to some of the good vibes because it's easy to get bogged down and being upset right now, and I totally get it. I'm not happy about the way this series went either. However, there's a lot of things that happen in this series that are very good for the Montreal Canadiens. So before we get too deep into it, Connor, how you feeling, man?
I'm kind of glum, mon chum. Like I'm a little like yeah, I'm upset to see them go. But the amount of pride I have for this team, I like words are not enough to describe how I really feel about this team. If I can just do one very quick tangent.
For sure.
I fell out of love with hockey a couple years ago. When I was about 14, I moved up a level in hockey when I played, and I was this big uncoordinated giraffe on skates going against a lot of dudes who were like Lane Hudson and Cole Caulfield, able to skate circles around me. And I was angry, and I got suspended a couple games, and I just hated the game of hockey. And then later down the line, it was the Team Canada incident, and it was all these really negative things that when I got to journalism school, I said to myself, I want to write about football, and I don't want to write about anything really else. And I was granted the opportunity to write about women's rugby and then the incredible women's hockey team at Concordia, obviously. And I reignited this passion that I had for the game, and I had sort of forgotten about. And the past 2 years with the Canadiens have just added to that. And I went from a kid who, had Saku Koivu's poster over his bed and, fell out of love with the game that he so admired growing up and was a passion of his, was part of my personality. And the statement of a season that they've just had, like I wonder why I went dark so all those years, because like the love I have for hockey thanks to this team, and of course like the victoire and so many other aspects out in Montreal hockey, I just have to thank them. Like truly just thank you guys for the incredible performances that we've been treated to this year. And like being at the game the other day, like being at game 4 and just being surrounded by people that like again don't speak the same first language as me, but when the puck goes in the back of the net, everybody's getting a hug and beer is being spilled, and you have to literally hold on to your hat because you're being wrestled by dudes who are like 40 something and like 300 pounds just shaking you back and forth with excitement. So I guess truly I just want to say that like I'm upset that it's gone, but I'm so happy it happened.
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like this season was, in a way, healing for a lot of fans. And we've watched this rebuild click together over time, and there have been concerns here and there about, like defensive, defensive positioning or defensive structure, or like what the plan is in certain ways. And there's some people who get frustrated for this reason or that, but we've seen the outline. We kind of understand the plan of this management group, and now we're seeing it come together, not just a little bit, but quite a bit, quite rapidly. I think more rapidly than anybody could have expected. And the fact that they continued to put on a show, I think for a lot of folks who've had a really rough year, the Canadiens have been a reason to be happy at the end of the day, and it sucks that that season is over. It really does. I was not ready for it to be over, to be honest with you. I wanted to do more of these, not just for the Canadiens, but also to share time with our friends here in the chat, and you, Connor, and Kay, who couldn't be with us today because she's a little bit too emotional, which is totally valid. It's tough, hockey, sports are pain most of the time. And I guess it's good to be reminded of that early. in the rebuild before the expectations get too high. So,
Absolutely. Like
my
the
friends,
poetics of sports, the up and downs, the heartbreaks and the thrills are like that's why we come back every year, truly.
100%. And part of the reason why you come here to Game Over Montreal is because this is a show that will not shy away from giving you the real shit. And the real shit tonight, and we're going to get it out of the way early because I want the rest of the show to be happy so that we can all go on with our evening and go to bed with smiles on our faces. But we really do have to talk about these. Like, and I want to be clear before we get into it that when we're talking about the officiating, neither myself nor Connor are saying the Canadiens would have won if this. No. The Canadiens were the 8th seed in the East, a surprise team to make the playoffs. There is nothing that we could change immediately and then confidently say, oh, they definitely would. I think they played very hard in this series and in some ways outplayed Washington. And they deserve better than the result that they got, but I don't think deserve to win enters into that conversation when we talk about the officiating. I want to talk about it not even necessarily about this series, although this is the most egregious that I can recall. Maybe there have been worse series in the history of hockey. I'm not sure. I'm not going to make a huge claim like that. But to my immediate recollection, and I've been watching hockey for a long time now, this is the most lopsided I've seen a series in terms of rate of infraction versus rate of penalty call. And I think that's something that's very important to get across the line. And I'm not even blaming the Washington Capitals in this situation. It's not something that I hold against that organization or even the players, even though they were the ones doing the dirtbag crap, because this is a viable strategy made viable by the NHL. Teams cannot play like the Washington Capitals did in this playoff series in the regular season. Why is that? Connor?
I have no clue. You tell
Oh,
me. You
well,
tell me, Andrew. Like
well,
truly.
there's two ways that you can play as physical as the Washington Capitals played tonight. You can overextend yourself to lay big hits, in which case teams will pick you apart defensively constantly, or you can maintain your defensive posture, but then just hit players way after the puck is gone and get called for it all the time and get killed on the penalty kill. But in the playoffs, the NHL, and this is not a controversial thing that I'm saying. I don't think. I just don't see it spoken aloud a lot. The NHL at the highest levels, the people who influence how the game is run. There is a group in that group, or maybe it's all of them, I don't know, who believe in that old-time hockey, right? And playoff hockey equals old-time hockey, where like things, you just let them play, you let them play. And that idea has warped so far that teams can now exploit that in the playoffs and operate in a structure that's, I dare the ref to make these calls. You commit so many infractions that if the ref were to call them all, it would look ridiculous because you'd be in the box all the time and then there'd be media pressure and that pressure would be immediate, right? The NHL doesn't like that kind of stuff. Other teams have employed it. The Bruins used to employ it, but they were much sneakier. This Capitals team, I think the biggest difference between them and other teams who've employed this is that they weren't sneaky about it. Like nothing about what they did was sneaky. It was in your face the entire time, always behind the play, always hooking, always holding, blatant as you can get, and it just wasn't called. Now, I know some people will go the conspiracy theory route and be like, oh, Canadian team versus American team. I think that's nonsense. I think it straight up is a combination of two things. Young players in the NHL don't get the benefit of the doubt with referees. Canadians are the youngest team in the league, or at least in the playoffs, youngest team ever in the playoffs. And the dare you to call it factor. And Washington took advantage of that to an extreme degree. And unfortunately, the Canadiens did not get that same leeway in terms of calls. And it did flip the series at multiple points. It doesn't mean the Canadiens would have won if not. But I think it's extremely important to talk about this stuff because there is no accountability in the NHL for officials outside of the NHL says that there's accountability, but you never actually hear about it. And I think if you look back at how things have changed in the NHL for the positive, it has come from fans first. The crackdown on slashing in the NHL a few years ago was because Oilers fans made video compilations of McDavid getting slashed, and actually I think Calgary fans too, with the Gaudreau getting slashed so much that he broke his wrist, and they were literally shamed into making a change. So this is my challenge to Habs fans who are watching this, and I'm going to clip this as well. Go out there, get all the video of this series, and clip everything. Make a huge compilation of late hits, hooks, holds that were let go, and then go through and look at all the actual penalties that were called. Go through the replays. Shame them. Don't let it go away. That's my challenge. All right, Connor, how are you feeling about the officials?
That's just it. When you set me up earlier, I thought I was gonna like jump in and be like, yes, it's because they're so young. But then like I was like, wait, no, he's gonna cook. I'll let him cook real quick.
Sorry.
The no. It was just me just like zoning out and being like, at the wrong time. There is the huge point about like inexperience, and I wrote it down in my notes as I was watching the game. And this sequence shouldn't have been called a penalty, in my opinion, especially in the playoffs. But Ryan Leonard streaking it on goal and being tripped up by like the just debris of sticks that just got thrust in his way, and him turning right to the refs and demanding that like an explanation,
Yeah.
is sort of like what I've been looking at a little bit is younger players are going to be expecting these calls because a lot of them should be called. That trip is not one, but Ryan Leonard, just for a reminder, got here a week before Demidov did. Like it's really like a situation like that where like with the youth that you see in this league, they have so much capability or they have so much power, so much sway that I don't know if they know about yet. That if you combine the fan base compilations with just the strength of speed that we are getting more and more, the more finesse, the more speed, the more ability, the more nuance in the game that we're seeing more and more versus that old school grittiness that the NHL is trying to latch onto and never go away from, can shape how playoffs look in the future. And we are capable of changing that. Looking at the refereeing this season, me being at game 4, which isn't a flex, I had to pay an arm and a leg and stay in the Ticketmaster queue for like 30 minutes fighting my way for a ticket. The Jake Evans hit to the head, like I don't care what player is on the ice. You got to like he's 5 in a game. I'm sorry, Ovi. Like go back to the locker room, please. Like it's ridiculous what you're seeing game in and game out. The last time when we did Game Over earlier in the series, I think the big points that I said was dangerous. Like it's dangerous to do this. We don't want anybody hurt. Hockey players keep their mouths extra tight and extra shut when it comes to injuries that they're getting, especially in the postseason. Like it's a situation where like somebody said in the chat, like the list that we're gonna see in tomorrow or in the next couple of days of all the injuries, Josh Anderson alone, Nick Suzuki earlier, what he got, like Sam Montembeault, we're probably going to really find out what's wrong with him. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if Dobesh, with all the contact he had tonight, is fighting something. Like truly, it's a situation where it's just dangerous and the game is changing and fans want better. Like that's my 3 points, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that's the takeaway, that it has to be more than just like I'm mad because I'm a fan of this team and this team and my team lost because of the officiating. Like that's a valid thing to be, and sure, I'm mad too for the same reason. It sucks to watch that. It sucks to watch a team play really decent hockey and continually get the shit end of the stick. However, the focus has to be exactly what you're talking about, Connor, on the quality of playoff hockey. And is the quality of playoff hockey better if you allow teams to compete in this specific way? I would argue no. And I think there's a lot of talent on these two teams, but if you look at most of the goals in this series, they're bouncing around. And that's true of the playoffs in general anyway, but it doesn't have to be. Like the idea of like let them play in the playoffs has always to me meant every shift everybody's giving 100 because there's nothing left to fight for. Like you're not saving for anything. You're all in. It's the playoffs. You have nothing to lose except for losing, right? So the hits are harder. The skating's a little bit faster, but it doesn't mean now hooks don't exist or now trips don't exist unless we decide sometimes they do. And you've got a situation where the players are always screaming at the refs because they don't know what the hell is going to be called and when. Like, I know that they're on there communicating with the players on the ice, and there's a competitive atmosphere, so there's always going to be yelling. But it is so bad now. It's so bad. Like, how can you expect anyone to figure out what's going on, especially young players? And I also find the young player stuff, that is bull, and they need to stop. Like, I understand, you got to earn respect in this league. I don't care, though. It's stupid. You're not their teammate who they need to earn respect from. You're there to enforce the rules of the game. So do your job.
That's it. And I'd at least like to see consistency. Like when you watch baseball and a pitcher is throwing outside the zone and getting called for a strike, and then the opposing pitcher comes on the mound, throws outside, doesn't get a strike call. No. Consistency. It has to go both ways. If you're gonna miss a trip on one side, miss the trip on the other side. I think this here, when it comes to just flat out call it, it's okay to start calling it. I don't know if they're also just afraid of it puts too much of a hamper into rate of play and how much the game progresses. But at the same time, I think fans want to see more power plays. I think a fan would like to see a bit more 4-on-3 action or even 5-on-3 action if it's merited. Truly, one of the best sequences from this game, even though they were down 2 goals, was seeing the 6-on-5 that the Canadiens executed at the end of the game and having to see your entire future out there on that line. Demidov playing huge minutes in the past couple of games too has just been incredible for me to watch as well, just because I'm yeah, he had a great debut, but there was so much thrust on this kid that we didn't even think he was coming over this year. And you just look at it in general and you're they showed it. They're all these kids are 20. I can say kids. I'm the same age. I'm actually older than I think Nick Suzuki. So that's I'm in the same boat of everybody Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky. All of them are younger than me. And I have existential dread about that. But I'm so thrilled to see that these guys are going to be on this roster for the time being and the extensions that they've already signed. Again, the point being, we want to see more fast-paced sequences and a lot more of that. And it comes with getting those calls because number 1, it's a safety concern. Number 2, it's bullshit. And number 3, it's just it's going to make for better hockey. You just have to accept that.
Yeah, and the fact is also, it's not just the refs, right? Where was NHL player safety? Where have they been in the playoffs? Have they done anything? I haven't seen a damn thing. And I think there are multiple incidents in this series. There were people in the chat I saw talking about the Ovi hit that you mentioned. I think the Wilson hit. Oh. I would have liked to see them actually talk about that. I understand that it wasn't blindside, but his shoulder goes directly into Carrier's head. Mm-hmm. Directly into his head. And then the I think it was Dowd knee on Line A. That was targeted. I'm sorry, it was. And the fact that Ovechkin charged at Carrier earlier on in that game, and then Wilson did the exact same thing, and they've been going after Carrier that whole game. I think that they made a decision to target that player. I think they saw that his strategy was often to take a hit to make a play, and they thought that he was a vulnerable guy who they could hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wish that post game there is re-review about this that's more in depth. I see that in the PWHL all the time where players are fined after the fact, even if you were watching the game, and in the moment you're oh, it didn't seem like much. No, you're going to get fined for that after the game because it was dangerous. The NHL needs to start doing a bit more of that, I find. I'm not saying that they don't fine players, and they don't, but in the playoffs, it feels like hands go up in the air, and they're just we're going to let it slide. No, you have the power after the game to say what he did was dangerous, and it needs to be corrected. There is consequences to this.
100%. And I'm honestly surprised that Gary played today. And he was actually pretty good, which...
You could argue he was the best defender for the Canadiens in this series. You could easily argue
I would say that Lane Hudson has that.
Absolutely. I would say the same thing, but I know a lot of people, just being in the store today, a lot of people were saying, "Hey, Alex Carrier was one hell of a trade this season."
Oh,
Like, imagine
phenomenal.
Justin Barron. Imagine Justin
Uh,
Barron. No offense to
it-
that. Let's not.
no offense to Justin Barron, because I have nothing against the kid, and I know that I've seen some people kind of root for him to fail, and I don't get that. But
Yeah.
if they don't make that trade, they're not in the playoffs,
Hmm.
like flat out. Okay, I did want to talk a little bit about this game and the team in general. I didn't like the way that they responded to the Ovechkin goal. They basically floundered for 30 straight minutes of gameplay. I understand it. I think what happened there is they came out, they were completely dominant. They earned a power play. Power play actually looked good. And then Slavkovsky gets called for a very, very weak slash, if you would call it a slash. I would call that tying up a stick. And because the stick breaks and the guy falls, he gets called. And then the stick breaks for Christian Dvorak off the ensuing faceoff, and Ovechkin just fires a bullet. And it seemed like in that moment, I'm not really a body language guy, but just watching the reactions, it was like all of them are like, okay, the stars are aligned and we can't do it. It's just not going to be possible. No matter how good we play, it's going to go against us. And it just felt like that was weighing on them for almost the entire game. And that sucks. It's a sucky way to end the season. So I'm glad they had the burst at the end, but I didn't like that reaction. And like I said, I get it, but it sucked.
That's it. Like, it didn't feel. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm drinking that stupid Coors Light seltzer thing that I tried to do. Is like I had another one in my fridge, but like I'm trying to drink it and get through it. I'm like, oh, it's so sugary, and I'm like trying not to burp into my microphone. I'm so sorry.
Hey, I'm
But
coughing into mine. So
that's it. Like we're just like getting like it's gonna be full of just the liquids you don't want it to be full of. My microphone. What was I gonna say? Yeah, like that's just it. Like it felt deflating. Like after the first goal, which like this is a team that especially in this series, you haven't seen that from them. Like you've really seen like a team that's like ready to claw back, ready to fight, and like until the third period, it was absent. It felt absent. Like I think Jakub Dobeš deserves like a hell of a round of applause, truly, because
yeah,
like for what he was thrust into, like a reminder that Jakub Dobeš wasn't in the NHL to start the season. Like we could say that with so many of these players. A reminder that this person wasn't in the NHL, even not just like at a point in the season. Like Kapanen wasn't here for the majority of the season. It's so many of these guys where it's just like it felt like I don't want to say they gave up. They didn't give up by any means. Like you saw, like there was a fight near the end of this game, but like it felt like just as you put it, Andrew, like floundering and just looking at themselves like hard in the mirror and being like, another day, another dollar, like that 5 o'clock shadow, sort of cartoonish, like having to like here we go again sort of energy.
yeah,
And this time like it was the last straw or the straw that broke the camel's back and ended
yeah.
this series.
And if you watch the face-off before the Jake Evans phantom call that gave the Caps a 3-1 lead when they scored on the power play, just watching their faces on before that face-off, I was like, they don't have it. Because Evans is a guy who's usually so keyed in, and he looked
Hmm.
like he wanted to go home. And I don't. It wasn't a great look. So I'm glad that they found themselves a little bit in the end to close out the season with a bit of pride. And I'm glad that Heineman busted the slump too, because I think that was his first. Was that his first goal since he came back from
I
the
think
most recent
so.
injury?
Like I don't remember him scoring another one, like to be honest with you. Like so yeah, good for him as well. I know I mean you're humping up, you're busting a hump on the last game of the season technically, but at the same time on Jake Evans, by the way, like I was gonna say, like just to add on to your point about him usually being a bit more locked in, there was a point on the bench where I think, and I'm not gonna say the F word, and I can't really read lips, but you could tell they were talking about the refs, and it was like, yeah, it's effing bullshit, bro. Like I feel like I saw him say that, and at that moment I was like, yeah, they feel they're as frustrated as the fan base is, truly, if not more.
Yeah. And I think it's really hard to avoid that when it's so extreme as this series was. But that's like you want the fans, it's okay for us to do that. But the team can't be feeling that right? Like you have to find a way to move beyond that, because as soon as that seeps in, it's almost kind of over, right? Unless you have the chip on your shoulder that you're like, we're gonna fight them both, but when you're down 3-0, probably don't have that chip on your shoulder at that moment facing elimination. So, but let's talk about the good parts of the series, because as much as it's easy to vent our frustrations and that's fun and everything, let's talk about the things that surprised us, because I think there's some really interesting information that we've gathered about this rebuild that's come out of this series. I think the number one thing is it might have been a different series if Montebo didn't get it.
Mm. Ooh,
Like,
that's
I'm
that
not
that's
blaming Dobesh at all, by the way. Unfair situation for him, but Monty was pretty damn excellent.
yes, he was. He was big he was I really can't speak tonight. It's this damn core seltzer. He was big game Montembeau like at the start of the series. Like he really was. Like he really did show up to play. Dobesh was solid too. Like I can't take it away from them. Like I think like I haven't had this much confidence in like a goaltending tandem where Montembeau is the starter or like the quote unquote starter, like with the Allen situation, where I'm looking at it, I'm like, I have confidence in these two coming out of summer camp next year. I have confidence in that. Like, I'm not looking at the AHL and like the Jacob Fowler fanboys who are like, I can't wait for him to get here. I'm like, I can't. Like, truly, with
Let
the
him
way these
cook.
two have, like, yeah, let them cook. Like, Jakub Dobesh before the game, like, at one point, like, he's burying his head in his sweater, but like, he's just locking in. He's just taking his time. He's just preparing. I'm like, yeah, this guy's acting like he's been here and done that, like just like by attitude. Like even though in his mind he's still probably saying like, "Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap," but at the same time, like he's a textbook professional and a consummate professional. That's probably the word I'm actually looking for, and just really exemplify like what it is to be a good goaltender. But you're right. If Montembeau is in this series, is it necessarily the same result every time? Like, because there's been so many close games, like so many close games in this series.
Yeah, it's been extraordinarily close. And I think when they were head to head, Montembeau had outbattled Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the save percentage doesn't look that impressive at 908 overall, but remember that the last goal that Montembeau allowed was right after he was injured. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, how much does that count really for his performance? I would say 0. Um, so that could be different, but I think the biggest takeaway above all of it is the play of the Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slavkovsky line. I mean, you could argue, I guess, Hudson as well, because he was just ridiculous in playoffs. But I think one of the important things to look at in this series is that the Capitals, who are a team with way more depth than the Montreal Canadiens, way more playoff experience than the Montreal Canadiens, and supposedly more top end talent, more defensive structure, all that, right? But through 5 games, even though they won that series, they had no answer for that top line for the Montreal Canadiens. They did not have an answer. Through 5 games, that line played 60 minutes at 5-on-5, which is pretty nuts. In that time, they owned 64%, 64.2% of the shot attempts, 95 to 53. Like, put numbers to it. Shots, 61%, 1.2%. Expected goals, 65.84%.
And just if you can look it up for me, if you have it, Nick Suzuki's face-off percentage. I think he was.
Face-offs?
I like just because I'm curious what it was, because like I mean like all like the big thing I will say about this line is that coming into this year, a lot of people were saying, like myself when I was writing for the Hockey News about this, was that they're going to make another step forward. And I think with like how much we expected them to like really break out, like Slav had a pretty slow start if you really want to compare it like that. Like, I mean, Caulfield had like the great start that we were like, oh my God, he's going to get to 50 goals. And like he didn't, and that's okay. But they all proved, I mean, Nick Suzuki, we already knew this, but they really did show how like they're all 200 feet players. And like that for me, like cementing all the other aspects of the game. There are a lot of times in this series where Cole Caulfield had a great defensive stick. and had a really good way to like get in the lane, deny chances, like pick up the open man. Like these are things that like you want to see players grow into these type of players coming out of the draft. Like when Nick Cole Caulfield was coming into the draft, it was he's the best shooter, he's the best goal scorer probably in that draft. And now you can say he's an incredibly well-rounded player. And a lot of that has to go into, Martin St. Louis and the coaching staff as well. But the step they took doesn't necessarily like, of course we saw it statistically, like Nick Suzuki's first point a game season, and he went over a point a game technically, but just again like the well-roundedness of that line and then getting into the playoffs and doing their thing, like it can't be understated. Like truly, like the future is bright with those three, and there's even a chance that like if Demidov like blossoms next year, that we could see, dare I say it, a bit more of like line changing with those three, and they can help out other guys and elevate the other guys around them, I think.
Well, I think we saw that tonight with
Mhm.
Marty splitting them up, right?
That's it.
That's something that they can look at short term. I think that line is long term going to stick together, but as you said, they now
Mhm.
have so many reps that they can be split up comfortably and then just slap back together again whenever. Like the fact is Marty's consistency in coaching and his trust in those young players has continued to pay off in spades. And you mentioned Slavkovsky, you mentioned Caulfield. I think Caulfield in particular, with the caveat that I believe that Nick Suzuki was injured at the end of the season, I think in the Blackhawks game where he got run really bad. I think Cole Caulfield was the best Habs forward in the series.
Oh yeah.
I thought he was absolutely incredible the entire time. But between him and Suzuki and Slavkovsky, it's kind of hard to separate at the end of the day because they were so good together. Like who was the main driver in what game. But overall, I look at the head-to-head matchups and who like Suzuki played against. There isn't a single player head-to-head that outshot Nick Suzuki head-to-head against the Capitals. Like
Wow.
when I say there was no answer to that line, I literally mean Washington tried everything and they couldn't find anything that slowed them down. And that, if you're a Canadiens fan, should make you extremely happy because you still have Demidov.
Yes.
And you saw in this series just the mere spark of the fire that's going to be lit. It's a good time to be a Montreal Canadiens.
If they could have gone on to like a game 6 or game 7, I guarantee you we would have seen even more brilliance from Demidov because he looked to get even more comfortable every game. And I also think like one of the biggest takeaways from game 4 was Slavkovsky. Andrew, you and I have talked about identity with Slavkovsky in the past and like how he sort of has to stick to a lane of like, is he going to be like a two-way power forward who like throws the body around, or is he going to be a playmaking? He won't necessarily get to 20 goals every year, but like he'll have a really good like chance to get to 50 to 60 assists in a year. And game 4, he showed that a lot, even like just with his head fakes and his hesitations, being able to gain the zone and find the right man to get the pass to. Like the future is so bright just with those 4 names alone that we mentioned. And we're not even going to bring up the fact, or we haven't brought up the fact that Jake Evans was probably a surprise good 2C, or good is like huge, but like a solid 2C this series, that Martin St. Louis had enough comfort and trust in him that he was switching him with Nick Suzuki on lines.
100%. And the fact is, they shouldn't have been able to compete in the series against the number 1 seed. They don't have a second line center. As good as Dvorak and Evans have been this year, neither of them are second line centers, even though like they performed better than we could have ever expected in having to fill in those roles over the course of the season, which is it's good news. It's good news for the Canadiens all around. I especially think that Jake Evans extension
Oh yeah.
was a kind of a turning point for the season. All right, let's do a little bit of a season retrospective, just quick here. But before we do, we gotta show you a video talking about one of our partners. We are so excited to tell you about our new partner here at Game Over Montreal, a delightfully witchy goth and glam jewelry store making handcrafted art that varies from subtle silver to gold pieces to glamorous bespoke. Inchu Bijou is more than just a company. They've built a community through advocacy and a welcoming attitude that has made them an institution here in Montreal. Located in the historic Chateau Saint-Ambroise, Inchu Bijou also runs seasonal themed markets called Maleficarum Market or Marché Maleficarum en français, where artisans from all over get together and showcase and sell their wares. Drop by 4000 Rue Saint-Ambroise, Suite 278, and say hi to Astrid and the Wicked team, or head to inchubijou.com and enhance your style. The next Maleficarum Market will be on the weekend of February 8th and 9th. We'll see you there. Now, let's get back to the show, but before you do, make sure you subscribe to Game Over Montreal, Game Over Network, and smash like on this video because it really helps us out. Welcome back to Game Over Montreal. I am Andrew Berkshire here with Conor Tomalty, and we're going to do a little bit of a quick season retrospective, maybe our favorite stories, maybe what stuck out the most about this season. And I think the natural way to start is Lane Hutson. Because after that playoff series, is there a single person who watched hockey this year that doesn't think Lane Hutson is one of the best defensemen?
Oh yeah. like I'm watching him on the 6-on-5 at the end of the game, and I'm like, this kid looks like he's been here and done that. Like he looks so beyond his years. Like it's like I've talked about this in the past, but like I have friends who are big basketball fans and like they don't really watch hockey that I work with, and like they've seen there's a picture that Lane Hutson posted at one of our stores, and like he's like what 5'8", 5'9", like he's not a tall guy, and they were like, dude, he's really small. How is he making an impact? And then like after like the first or second game of the series, I got a text from like 3 of them being like, I'm sorry, I was not familiar with your game. Like Lane Hutson is incredible. Like it still baffles me that he's a 2nd-round draft pick. Like it's still so baffling to me that he is just oh my god, there isn't words cannot describe how much I appreciate Lane Hutson as a person and as a future asset and a future huge piece of this Canadiens team that is going to be in the running probably for a Norris in a couple years. Like truly, like I think like if you really want to take a risky bet, you'd gamble on it next year, but I don't think that soon, but like I wouldn't mind just like putting a $5 not condoning gambling. Let's just put that out of the way. But like if you want to put down a $5 bet next year that he wins the doors, sure. Why not? Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, there's worse ways to put $5 away, you know?
Mhm.
I don't know if he will get the attention.
That's
he
fair.
will. No, he will. He will. I'm lying. I'm like trying to figure out a way like to couch it. I'm like, nah, I feel like it could happen. Like as ridiculous as it sounds, I'm not going to underestimate him again. And
That's
I
it.
feel like I was one of his biggest boosters, and I still feel like I underestimated him, which is nuts. The Hudson family should be very proud, and Lane should be very proud of himself the way he handled this season. It's very impressive. I see some talk in the chat about the Canadiens looking for a second line center going into next year. We're going to talk about that in our next segment where we're going to look forward a little bit, but let's look backward a little bit still because there's more things to talk about. I kind of want to touch on a few players with you, Connor, if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Maybe we'll see like our impressions go. Alex Newhook.
I didn't hate him this series.
Neither
Like
did
I really did. I didn't hate his game, but maybe as a piece on a second line, you give him another chance next year. But I'm not sold on the sort of the Alex Newhook I was promised, which is this guy coming over Colorado who's been so buried in the depth chart because of the depth of the forwards on Colorado that like if we just give him some playing time, we'll see what happens. It feels like at times like he was almost cursed. Like how many goals did he have this series? I think he had 1 goal.
Yeah,
And
he hasn't scored a lot this year.
that's it. Like
it
it's
wasn't a
one of those
lucky year for him.
situations where it's like his speed is definitely an asset to get the puck in transition into the offensive zone deep. I'm not gonna. I like on as a depth player. Yeah, I see Noah as a part of the future of this team. As a second line player, I don't necessarily know that I want that, and I don't want to. Like I feel like I'm being negative towards the guy, but like truly that's just my gut instinct. It's just how I'm sort of feeling is like sometimes it just comes down to like the weird phenomenon that is sort of bull crap, which is aura of a player. And it just feels like Newhook doesn't have the aura that he's a top six guy. Like and like just call it like how many chances that I've seen him have where the puck just like he can't buy a goal. Or
Yeah.
like at times like it really felt like that. But like on a third line where he like the sparing amount of goals or like production that you're gonna get out of him might actually just be an asset. Like his speed throwing him on a line when you're like when the other opposing team is completely gassed at the end of a shift and he gets the puck from one end and he's going to have a full head of steam. Yeah, watch out. Like let him get the puck in deep and see if like they can just grind it out. But Andrew, please, what are your thoughts on Mr. Newhook?
I have a few different thoughts because initially I feel like he's right guy, wrong time for the third line. If Dvorak, Anderson, Gallagher didn't become an absolutely perfect third line this year, I would look into finding a place for Newhook on a different look third line. But now he's on the outside looking in and he has fewer spots to get into. So like wrong time. At the same time, I look back at Anderson and Dvorak last year before that, and I would have said wrong guy and wrong time to both. And the Canadiens and those players found a way to make something work. So I feel like we've got to let them cook a little bit with Newhook. And yeah, it's 2 seasons in, but it wasn't 2 seasons in for Josh Anderson or Christian Dvorak. They had more time. So maybe they can find something that can get more out of him. But if I were to talk to Alex Newhook directly, I would tell him that as soon as you decompress from this season and you're ready to get back at it, have people send you bad passes in traffic constantly and practice on your shot because you are always in the right place, good sir. Always. But you never get the shot off. And just practice the quick release under pressure while moving relentlessly. And maybe it won't happen in October, November. Maybe it'll take till January and February. But if you get the combination of your speed with a better release, a more consistent release, man, you're going to score a lot of goals. You can do it. I know you can do it.
And just adding that goal scoring that's not from the top two lines as well. Like if you do want to really push with the idea of him being a third or fourth line, I don't really think fourth line, but the third line for sure. Or even like sparingly in the second if you really do want to change things up. Yeah, I agree with that. I would have to agree with that. I think like it was not talking about Newhook for a sec. I was thinking about Josh Anderson a bit, and I don't know if I'm jumping players here, Andrew, but
No, it's good.
at the beginning of this year, a lot of people were saying, "Hey, he hasn't been the power forward that we expected when we landed him, and we brought him over." Like Josh Anderson wasn't that power forward that we thought was going to have this goal scoring touch. In fact,
Right.
I remember last season, all I would hear from customers when they would come into the store, I've worked for Lids for a while. It's traumatic. All I'd hear from customers is, "Could Josh Anderson please score a goal?" Because there was that stretch last year where like he just couldn't find the back of the net, and when he finally did, everybody was elated. But this year, he's taken a role on that third line where he was a huge asset for this team. And I
Yep.
really don't know where they would have been in this series without him too. Like with like the toughness of like people were making the case that like we didn't need Jack Eye to come in because Josh Anderson was towing the line with Tom Wilson enough that like that was the heavyweight tilt fight that we all were expecting. Not throwing in Jack Eye, who is so young and has a history of getting too emotional, even though he was incredibly level headed. And I think that I'm not going to worry too much about that with him in the future because he's really showed himself and he's matured. Uh, and that's just it. Like Josh Anderson this year has been great. With that, like Dvorak had gotten so much hate online that I was reading from
Yep.
people where they were like every like trade sequence, it was like Logan Mailloux and Christian Dvorak. Those were like the two like names that I was just always seeing, and it was like we're not getting Trevor Zegras. Like I'm sorry guys. Like we were not at a point where like we were going to get him. Claire, just to quickly answer your question, yes, I was at the downtown store in St. Catherine Street for a while last year. But that's just it. Like Josh Anderson, another guy that like I'm curious to see how he is next year.
Yeah.
And like if we get another equivalent season, same with Brendan Gallagher. Same with like a lot of these guys that I'm like, do we still get the same effectiveness or the same degree of chutzpah that we were getting from you all this year too?
I hope so, just because now that they've tasted what it can be, you'd think they'll be even more hungry next year. But success or development isn't linear. So you can also say, like, next year could be a fallback year. You just never know. Right. And it's interesting with Anderson because this year was actually his second worst, like, actual goal scoring year since he started with the Canadiens, and by far the least he's ever shot the puck.
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue it's the best he's ever been by a wild margin.
Nobody was complaining about him when it came to goal scoring. Or
No.
it felt like it was like radio silence when it came to that online because we knew what his role was. He knew what his role was, and he executed it day in and day out. Like, I didn't have any qualms with Mr. Joss Anderson.
No, he was fantastic. All right, next player that I wanted to ask you about, Patrick Laine.
There's something we can get from Patrick Laine. I don't think it's the expectation that we're, going to hold on to. I saw an SDPN clip. I'm pretty sure you probably saw this too, Andrew, where it was like Patrick Laine, when he was drafted, was seen as this guy who's going to score a lot of goals. And now Patrick Laine is just a guy who can sort of score a lot of goals, it feels like. And identity-wise, like, what are the steps he takes next year? Like, I know it's been a really tough battle for him mentally, especially in recent years. But if he is going to be a long-term piece of this puzzle, and I still think like his power play upside, like I still think back to that stat where like he was like top 5 in power play goals, and he was like 20 less games compared to like the guys who were like ahead of him or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, there is still a role for Patrick Laine on this team, at least for the future. And I do think that like there is that situation, but like if he doesn't display the other characteristics of what it takes to be a top 6 forward, 200-foot hockey, grittiness, a bit more fight from him, how long does he stay a Canadian? Like, especially if there's some guys in the minors who could, not saying replace him, but could maybe step up and with the right package deal get the good 2C who elevates them even more. Or if Michael Hage down the line like really does pan out to be the player they expect him to be. And if you've watched him at Michigan at all this year, like there is that hope. That's the situation is like with Patrick Laine. I'm just I don't like saying he has to prove himself because like I just don't want to like keep putting pressure on this guy, but something's got to happen. Like something's really got to happen with Patrick Laine.
Yeah, I feel like ironically he enters next season with less pressure and more pressure at the same time. Because based on just what I saw, I'm not changing the top power play unit.
Absolutely not.
From what it was at the end here with Laine out. Like, he's not on it anymore. I'm sorry. I know he's got the one shot and everything, but I don't think that outweighs what Demidov brings in terms of puck movement and the chemistry that those 5 were developing.
Especially in the offseason. Especially in the offseason with how much they're going to work together. Absolutely.
So there will be like less expectations of Laine being the guy going into next season on the power play to like he's the guy who's going to score the goals. So being on the second unit, you're going to expect less goals from him anyway, right? But we expect to see much better all-around play, right? If you want to stay and be part of the team going forward, we've got to see if that knee injury is the reason why everything looks so rough this year. And we know that Laine is a very flawed player, but I don't think that he's as slow normally as he was this year. And it's not necessarily the straight line speed, right? Like he could get up there. He's just a big dude. It's the starts and stops, right? Anything on the boards or like requiring agility, he just got burned all season long. And as soon as players figure that out, they can work you pretty easily. You put Laine in a corner battle in practice against Brendan Gallagher, he's going to lose every single time. So we'll see if that gets better next year, but I need to see more of him. I'm willing to see it. I think he has a special quality to him, and I like the guy a lot.
Mm-hmm. Like, I love the
But
work he's been doing for mental health awareness as well. Like, if you've kept
yeah,
up with that campaign, like, there's so many brilliant things that, like, I think he's going to be doing outside of hockey. But yeah, with this team, like, the leash will become shorter, if you will, over time.
100%. All right, there's a lot of people who want to talk about the second line center thing, so let's move forward there, and we'll look forward to next season. And I'm gonna tell everyone what I would be doing if I were Kent Hughes. Just pretend Kent Hughes is a playoff beard, and then it's basically this. But before we do, check out our partner, Le Saint Motel. Looking to make awesome memories with your friends? Take some promotional pictures or videos for your business? Check out Le Saint Motel in Montreal's Sud-Ouest borough. It's an amazing selfie studio located in Montreal's historic Chateau Saint-Ambroise, right next to Inchu Bijou. It boasts 12 plus unique decors for you to enjoy and make memories with. Hop into their iconic heart-shaped ball pit or transport yourself back in time to Expo 67. Le Saint Motel can also come to you with mobile decor setups available to rent for events, including setup and takedown, or you can head to lesaintmotel.com right now for more details, or to check out their amazing decors that are always being updated. Now, let's get back to the show, but before you do, make sure you subscribe to Game Over Montreal, Game Over Network, and smash like on this video because it really helps us out. Welcome back to Game Over Montreal with Andrew Berkshire and Conor Tomalty tonight, and we are talking about the future and what I would do to solve the second line center question if I were Kent Hughes. And I would call one Kyle Dubas, who is a sad, sad man this week after he and Mike Sullivan agreed to part ways, as clearly things are falling apart in Pittsburgh. The writing's on the wall. And I know what everyone's going to say. There's no way it'll happen. Sidney Crosby's a Penguin for life. Okay, fine. Martin Brodeur was a New Jersey Devil for life, right? Mike Modano was a Dallas Star for life. You know, these things happen. Things change all the time. And I don't think anybody in the league who can give Sidney Crosby a legitimate shot at one more Stanley Cup at least can offer the volume and quality of pieces that the Montreal Canadiens to acquire a player like Sidney Crosby. And at the same time, remember, Sidney Crosby is Sidney Crosby. He's going to have control over where to go. I think there's a possibility that he could be convinced to try to go win a cup with his buddy Nathan MacKinnon in Colorado. But if you were able to talk to Sidney Crosby, even to Kyle Dubas, to tell him like to do right by his play, for a player who has won everything, whose legacy is completely untouchable, what better cherry on top of a career than Sidney Crosby helping to hang a 25th Stanley Cup banner in Montreal? His boyhood team. Just make it happen. It's too good. It's too good. It would solve pretty much anything. And Sid gets to extend his career with Ivan Demidov riding shotgun. I've heard worse pitches.
I don't know, is Sidney Crosby okay with like a guy who's a Russian forward who has a lot of like really good upside? I don't know if
really
that's
likes Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah, like they'd erect a statue just if he came over. They didn't have to win anything. They'd probably put a statue up just for Crosby in that sense. But I think the biggest thing I'll say is Sidney Crosby's going to retire a Penguin, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be on a one-day contract.
Ooh, spicy.
That's all I'll say.
I don't think it's as likely as the average fan does that Sidney Crosby ends his career only playing for one team. And there's two reasons. One, the Penguins are a complete mess and their organization is barren. So they have no assets to trade and nothing coming in the pipeline that's going to build a quality team. They're in a much worse situation than the Capitals were last year, who got very fortunate on a series of moves that worked out very, very well this season. There's no quick turnaround happening for Pittsburgh. They're too old and too thin. So there's that, which means there's nothing for Sid to play for. And the other part is, I think he could play like 6-7 more years. Like, I think he's a guy that he could just keep being good for as long as Yager. He's that kind of health nut. He's just, the hockey brain is out of this world, and he's just not declining, Connor. Every year, he's able to find a way to just be Sidney Crosby.
If Sidney Crosby was hated as much as like LeBron James is, like I would do the tweet that's like really like infamous with LeBron James, which is like when he was about to turn 30, somebody said like, "Oh, thank God, LeBron James is turning 30, not like only a couple more years of this shit." And now he's like 42. Like and he's still like he just got eliminated, I'm pretty sure. But like Sidney Crosby with like the advancements we've seen in health and player longevity, like Tom Brady, LeBron James, who I've brought up. Alex Ovechkin is another guy you got to look up like that. Marc-Andre Fleury with like yeah, he was a backup and like you could say what you want about the tail end of his career, but he still took enough good care of himself. It wasn't like he was in the twilight of his career. Like he could win you a game. Like it's sort of that
Absolutely.
situation where like you look at Sidney Crosby, like yeah, 6 or 7 years, wouldn't be surprised. Like and like declining, quote unquote, is going to be like marginally. Like it's going to be like instead of like however much he generates point wise per year, it's going to be like point something percent of that. Like that's how much he's going to decline. Like I don't think it's going to be enough. And I think if he's really with a young team who he can like help like be in a locker room, I'm just saying like as a hypothetical, I don't necessarily think that Sidney Crosby's going to land in Montreal, but I'm saying if we want to have fun with this hypothetical, then yeah, the impact that Sidney Crosby could have on that team, even if Sidney Crosby shocked the world and he played like a year for the Habs and then he was just like, I'm out. I think it could be a situation where like that team is gonna be impressed upon enough, like to have like a good, like one of the greatest veterans you could ever have in a locker room like that, who speaks enough French that he could, excite and satiate the fan base enough, would be. Oh my God, it would be something to behold for sure.
And frankly, the Canadiens would make enough money to sign him to a max contract on jerseys.
Oh my
Like
God. Oh, don't say that. I have to
ugh.
sell those jerseys, Andrew.
It would be crazy. And the fact is, like, I don't think there's a better situation for him. I really don't. Like, truthfully, I look around the league and it just seems almost tailor-made that he slots in at the perfect time. And Moose asks in the chat, what would you give up for a 38-year-old Sid? I would give up probably an amount that would make you uncomfortable because I've done a lot of research on Sid this year, specifically based looking at his like relative decline. And Sid over the last 3 years in his 35, 36, and 37-year-old season, he's the same age as me. 93 points in 82 games, 94 points in 82 games, 91 points in 80. In 3 seasons where the Penguins were crap, played 20 minutes and 9 seconds a night, 20 minutes and 5 seconds a night, 20 minutes and 22 seconds a night. Like, he is the picture of consistency at a time when most players are retiring or retired. That's unbelievable. I would give up a shocking amount. Not saying I would mortgage the future too much, but I would be comfortable as the Montreal Canadiens trading multiple first-round picks.
I was gonna ask. I was like,
early.
are you a trade the farm guy in this situation? Like,
not the farm, but I think
Mhm.
you can meet needs that would help the Penguins like get their rebuild going and not necessarily hurt yourself too much, because the addition of Crosby would be so monumental. Just the trickle down effect of it all would be crazy.
Yeah, like just the thought of Sidney Crosby in Montreal, like 7-year-old Connor is somewhere like crapping his pants, and his parents are concerned because he's at school and he doesn't have a second pair. But yeah, like Sidney Crosby in Montreal, like I again, like I'm not somebody who necessarily believes that that's going to happen, but just the thought of it alone is like enough to make. Okay, yeah, I don't know if there's any other player that would have any real like impact to level of Sidney Crosby could have if he came over. Truly, there is none. I had a something to say about him being 38, but I don't remember what the joke was, so I apologize. It was probably like to your expense. Unfortunately, Andrew, I'm
That's
being
okay.
like
Don't
you.
worry. Don't worry, man. I'm feeling that age today, all
if
day. I woke up this morning and didn't want to get out of bed.
if I may, he can't grow facial hair like you can. Like I'll give you
No,
that at least. Like God, no, he can't. Like he's had that same mustache for like in the playoffs for how many years now? Like it doesn't get thicker. Speaking of facial hair, I put out a Blue Sky tweet today about like you could tell how young this Habs team is because of their playoff beards. Like it was like Slavkovsky. Like I'm like, yeah, you look 20. Like he like I every time I look at you, I think you're just like a 25-year-old, like you're older than you are. And then it's just like nothing connects on his face. And I'm just like, well, wait in 5 years' time where like these kids are gonna be like stepping out in the playoffs with full facial hair, and we're gonna be like, oh right, like they're not children anymore. And I think like because you like look at David Savard and who first of all like congratulations on an incredible career and thank you
agreed.
for representing Quebec to such a good high esteem. Um, that like it was like dad strength to like the utmost like certainty of like just like bold thickness, and then everybody where it's like a caterpillar has been like severed in multiple pieces running across their top lip. You're just like, oh, that's cute.
Yep. Yeah, he has by far the strongest facial hair on the team. It's not a strong competition
Bar is
for
not high.
David Savard. But yeah, congrats on an amazing career for David Savard, Stanley Cup champion, and I wish that the closeout was a little bit more fun. But you were a big part of this rebuild for the Montreal Canadiens, and I think that people are going to remember Team Dad David Savard for a very long time. And yeah, I'll miss watching his butt block shots, man.
Oh
I
my
will.
God, yeah. Like, and the impact he's had in the locker room can't go understated. Like the
100%.
amount of young defensemen that have been a part of this rebuild in recent years and the impact he's had. Like, we're like I like there is a part of him like when you watch Caden Gooley play, and as amazing as Caden Gooley is, like you have to think like Savard has had an impact on him, Hudson, Struble, Jack Eye, so many young guys that like it really can't go understated how great and how much of a good impact that man has had on this team.
100%. All right, I'm gonna head to the overtime segment, open up some questions, but before I do, I'm just gonna switch over to the other overlay there. But before I go through the chat and read some questions, so put your questions in the chat. I just wanted to quickly kind of talk about this season and this first year of launching Game Over and the fact that people are here, hanging out with us. It does mean a lot, and I'm gonna miss doing this over the next little stretch as I dig into some work things that have been pushed to the side for the full season, just trying to keep up with the workload. But this has been a really difficult year, I think, for a lot of people, not just in Canada, not just in Montreal, but especially a lot of young people who are facing very difficult economic situation, as are we here at Game Over. And it's been a struggle to find our audience that we had before. The algorithms are not kind. So everybody who jumps in and chats with us and comments and likes and shares, it really does mean everything to us. For me personally, it's been a year where I feel like I've worked harder than I've ever worked in my entire life and accomplished almost nothing, which is never a good feeling. But I think that is kind of the enormity of the challenge that we're facing worldwide right now. It's the anxiety in the back of all of our minds. It's is there all the time. It's tough to look away. So for these moments that we've had together this year, where we've had fun and been relaxed and talked about something that, yeah, it's serious to us. We love sports. We love hockey. It's a passion. We experience it collectively together, but it's not necessarily the most serious thing in the world that we can have our escapism and experience some joy and some pain together. It is a very special thing. And it's why this company, aside from giving people like Connor, like Kay, a platform to grow their voice in this industry, it's part of the reason why this company means so much to me and why we're doing this and why we're willing to climb up this extremely difficult hill to make this work in a monopolistic media atmosphere here in Canada, especially. So appreciate it, seriously, to everyone who stuck with us this year, and to Connor and all of our Game Over Network crew. It's been a hell of a year, and I see how hard you've grinding to get things across the line. And I appreciate it. Next year, I probably will not be able to do as many of these post game ones. Getting a little old, and my focus has got to be elsewhere. I've got to grow this company, so we'll probably be expanding the team a little bit here. You might see a little bit more Connor, a little bit more Kay, and maybe Mark will be doing something else here. We'll see. There's going to be a lot of change over the summer for Game Over Network because we've got to do things in a different way to, not necessarily in a different way. We've got to build things for our team in a way that allows them to show their creativity more and also allows me to bring in some money for them. That's also important. Got to pay people. All right, let's see if there's any questions in the chat here. I don't actually see any. There's some comments. But do you have any final thoughts on the season there, Connor?
Yeah, I'm gonna make you feel weird. I'm so sorry.
Oh no.
I just want to, like, in front of everybody. I've talked to you about this in the past, but like, this has been an incredible opportunity for me here at Game Over. I'm for anybody who's curious, probably not. When I saw that there was the mass hiring, I DM'd Andrew on Instagram and I said, "Hey, my name's Connor. I do mostly Montreal Victoire coverage, and seeing about how you are starting an inclusive or really doing independent work of like an already inclusive, like trying to promote marginalized voice like a institution. I'm wondering if you guys have any, women's hockey like content that you want to talk about." And you said, "Why don't you just hop on with a call with me tonight?" And I walked in, and I immediately figured out that it was a job interview. At the moment, like I hop in, it's you and Maxim, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's do." Like two guys that I've admired for a while, like started there and just I did a good enough interview that you gave me a chance, and again, I'm so thankful for it. Kay is incredible. Like the work that Kay has done, like I love tuning in and hearing Kay do Game Over, and even like the multimedia. Oh, excuse me, my big feet hit the desk. The incredible multimedia stuff that she's done too, and just across the network, like the amount of talent that we have here already, and that like I anticipate us bringing in even over the summer too. Like Andrew, I can't thank you enough, and I can't thank everybody else here enough as well who's like stuck by me, and we're not stuck by me so much as just like started following me on Blue Sky and a couple other places, and has interacted with my work, and it's a really positive thing for someone who sees the sports, mediaverse in Canada for really what it is, and is hopeful to just find a place that he can settle and do good work, and this feels like that place. So yeah, thank you for everybody who supported us. I anticipated going only up from here, and I know that I like Andrew. I can't imagine how hard you've worked, but I know how hard you worked, if that makes sense. And like I said, like you're an incredible boss to have. So if anybody else wants to shower Andrew with some love and make him red as his shirt, please do in the chat because I hopefully have done enough of that.
Please don't make me get too embarrassed or anything in the chat. I don't want to handle that. But if you really want to be an awesome person and you have a couple bucks to throw around, we do have a Patreon that you can subscribe to. The link is in the description of this video or in the YouTube page or the description of this podcast if you're listening on a podcast. And we also have merch at thegameovernetwork.com that you can check out. And I believe Connor and I are both wearing the Montreal skater version that Brady Chalice made. And Brady is actually back in Manitoba coming up here in a couple of days. So we might be connecting on some new merch drops over the summer. So keep an eye on that. And I guess if there's no real questions, we went really long. So Romeli says, "I don't want to shower, Andrew. Thank you." Yeah. I get it. Kay is also tuning in late to say hello. We love you too, Kay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we make you feel comfortable. That's the best. Honestly, like is there a better compliment than feeling comfortable?
Like
You
there
know,
isn't like feeling safe,
yeah,
feeling comfortable. Like these
yeah.
are great things.
They're absolutely great things. We love you so much, all of our viewers here or audience, whatever you want to be called. Game Over Maniacs. I don't know. Some random word. We'll figure out something. But we'll be back. I'm probably going to take a bit of a break in terms of content for the Game Over Montreal channel. You know, I'll probably talk with Kay and Connor and Mark over the next couple of days. We'll see if we'll have some like ideas for that. But the Game Over Network channel might have some stuff coming out in the next little stretch here. So check that out. Click on the Game Over Montreal YouTube page, scroll to the bottom. All of our partner channels are there. You can check them out. We are live after every Canadian team plays. NHL team. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. Tired. It's been a long day and a long year. But the Montreal Canadiens impressed the hell out of us. And I think they gave us something to look forward to. All right. Draft time.
Draft time. Just go Habs, go.
Go Habs, go. All right, folks. We'll see you, I guess, before next season. We'll do other stuff. Probably have after react. I don't know. I don't want to commit to too much.
Free agency is a thing. Yeah, absolutely.
There's all sorts of stuff to talk about. You'll see us soon. Talk to you later.